Good evening. This is Brian Almon. Am I getting audio? Samsung Q2U. Okay, there we go. We should have audio. Excellent. This is a Gem State report for Friday, January 31st, 2025. This is the end of week 4 of the Idaho legislative session. Lots of stuff going on, but I am about to be joined by Senator Tammy Nichols, who agreed to come on and chat about what's been going on from her perspective. So let's bring her on right now. Senator Nichols.
Hello, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
Good. I feel like I just saw you up in the gallery just the other day.
Yes, I was watching you present the anti-swatting bill, and that one sailed through.
Sailed through. Yeah.
That's good news.
Yeah. So like you said, we just finished up another week of the session. So we're now at, about 3.5 weeks into everything. And it's been very, very interesting. I always tell people that every session is unique and has its own flavor. I've had people ask me, though, does it feel like this is going really fast or slow? And I said, it's kind of a little bit of both. I feel really busy and the time is like the day flies by, but we really haven't done that much as far as like hearing bills on the floor or things along those lines. So that part feels kind of slow. So it's this weird vortex almost of fast and slow going on at the same time. But we've been pretty busy.
Yeah, I've been watching it as much as I can, but I'm only one person. You're only one person. There's a lot of moving parts to this. 105 different legislators and a bunch of different committees. I presume that all these RSs that have been going through committees and then bill presentations, that there's going to be a lot hitting the floor in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we're already seeing quite a few things over on the House side. So, once they pass off the House, they have to come over to the Senate and go through a similar process. So I think we will start seeing quite a few things coming up on our calendar pretty soon. We've had so the Senate side does gubernatorial appointments. So we've been doing quite a few of those, and we still have more to do. But that's one of the differences between the House and the Senate is we handle that portion of things. But yeah, I've been watching what's going on the House too and talking to my colleagues over there as well. And there's a lot moving on over there. We have a bit, moving on over here. So yeah, eventually you're going to start seeing those calendars start filling up.
So this is this year you're the chair of the Senate Agricultural Committee. Can you just share what that's like? What's interesting things have come through that committee, and what it's been like chairing a committee?
Yeah, sure. So I've been on agriculture the whole time I've been in the legislature, and it's a big part of my district out in Canyon County area. And I take in a little bit of Ada, and then the majority is Canyon, though. And we have a lot of ag that's still out there. So, and it's just, agriculture is one of the huge commodities in Idaho. We do a lot of ag, and I've always just felt it's a really important committee and area of discussion. So I was able to be the vice chair the last 2 years, and this year they made me the chair of agriculture. And my idea is that like I said, I think agriculture is really important and it covers a lot of different things. So I really wanted to elevate this committee and make it a committee that we talked about things that we really haven't discussed in the past. We get a lot of presentations in that committee because there's a lot of different departments and different products and different parts of agriculture. You have like your cows, you have dairy, you have potatoes, sugar beets, and wine, and beef, and it just kind of goes on and on. But there's also areas that are not like food related. So, for instance, the Department of Agriculture actually oversees a bit of BLM, so BLM land. And so I'm putting together presentations that have to do with fire and how that is impacting agriculture. We've had quite a bit of fires going on over the last few years. And growing up in Idaho, I don't ever remember it being like that when I was growing up. The other portion is that we passed a hemp bill a few years ago so that farmers could grow hemp for industrial type things and commodity purposes. Well, what's happened since we've done that? That was 4 years ago. What's transpired since we've done that? So we're going to have a whole presentation to kind of update us on what's happened with that law that we have on the book. Another one is cloud seeding and weather modification. And so I've actually been working on a few bills in regards to that. And I think it'll be really interesting to have that discussion. But we're going to have a presentation on both of those to just tell people what's happening in those arenas. And a lot of people talk about weather
Mhm.
modification, and for a while it was this conspiracy theory type thing, but it's not. There's stuff going on with weather modification and cloud seeding, and is that working with what we're wanting it to do? Is it creating precipitation and helping us with droughts and things along those lines? Because my focus has really kind of shifted to outcomes. We put all this money into things, we do all these things to put in. What are we getting out of all this now? So that's kind of where my focus is this legislative session, is show me the outcomes and what are we getting. And if we're not getting what we thought we were or what we should, then let's look and see what can we change to get to those goals of those outcomes. So anyway, we have just some really interesting things in agriculture that I think the public hopefully will find interesting as well.
Talking about outcomes, I think there's always a temptation in politics to, pass a law that you think is going to have a good outcome, uh,
Mhm.
good intentions, and then dust off your hands and move on to the next thing.
Yep.
Uh, and yeah, unless you come back and see what it's actually accomplished and what its effects are, then you don't actually know if it was worthwhile or if it should
That's
continue.
exactly right. Yeah. And, we put laws on the books all the time. We rarely take them off. And we rarely, I mean, I know we're doing the zero reduction and red tape reduction type stuff. And that's all well and good, but like really digging into things, um, we're still not quite there yet. And I have found some stuff that I'm like, this needs to come off the books. There's no reason we should have it on there. But yeah, but that really is true. And so, when people come to me and start talking to me, when I have farmers coming to me saying, hey, I'd love to participate in growing hemp, but there's too much regulation and it costs too much. What am I supposed to do? Why do we even have this as a law? Then in my mind, it's like, okay, we need to revisit that and see where we're at, and facilitate any changes that may need to be done in order to make things actually work the way that the legislature had intended it to work.
Yeah, agriculture is a very big and complex
Yes,
machine,
it
and
is.
I'm
Yep.
definitely very much a novice at understanding it. Uh, especially just in the different things that people do. Farmers and ranchers and dairy, the way that they interact with each other and with utilities. Water is hugely important.
Mhm.
How they interact with government and government regulations. It's
Right.
how do you stay on top of all that?
I have a great secretary that helps me out. My committee is really, really good. I have to say there are a lot of meetings when you're chairing a committee. There you have a lot of meetings because everybody wants to come and talk to you about what's going on and about where they're at and what's happening. We're doing the rules right now. That's usually where we start in the legislature, is departments and different bureaucracies and agencies bring us their rules review. So we've been going over those right now, and getting the presentations on the changes of rules. And you have to be really careful in those because rules really do have the equalness to law.
Mhm.
And there's different types. There's pending rules, there's temporary rules, there's rules by incorporation, there's all sorts of different things. So that's kind of what we've been focusing on while we're introducing new pieces of legislation through print hearings. We call them print hearings, where a bill starts as an RS and then it has a print hearing. And if the committee chooses to print it, then it gets its bill number. So there's a lot of organizing that takes place. There's a lot of calendaring. I'm always checking in with my secretary and making sure where we're at on our schedules and what we have lined up. So it's really about good organization.
Um, you mentioned rules. I was just reading an article that Alex Adams co-wrote for I think it was the Cato Institute about how Idaho's rule system and legislative review is actually a model for the nation. A lot of states bureaucracies can just put their rules in place without any oversight, but here in Idaho, they actually have to go before the legislature and the germane committees and get you to sign off. What are some of the rules that you've seen come up? What kind of things are applicable to agriculture that are
Well, let me show
being
you. I
changed
want to
here?
kind of show just so that people can see what it looks like. So I'm on 3 committees, right? I'm on agriculture. So this is our binder. These are the rules that we're going over. And keep in mind, there was basically like an order given a few years ago that all the agencies were going to have to go through all their rules review. And so that's what they've been doing. And my understanding is next year's the last year that all the agencies by next year will have gone through all of their rules and brought them to the legislature. Before, we didn't do it this way. They would just get looked at every once in a while. But so this is my agriculture one. And so here's all the different rules that we have that we're going over. And these are things like fees that are being charged. These are things regarding weights and measurements, like gasoline and things like that, governing beef and cattle feed operations, produce safety, invasive species, organic foods, sheep and goats, oil seeds, and there's several more. But that's kind of what our rules in ag look like. Then I'm also on the education committee. So here's my binder for education. Now, this is my thinnest binder that I have. And these are the rules that are in here. And like I said, the agencies come and talk about, because they do theirs all year, and they do have to have a public hearing. They do a public hearing and everything like that. But a lot of people don't do this sort of stuff. The general public don't participate in a lot of these processes. Now, they'll have other entities that their rules changes might affect, and so they're taking notice pretty well. But like the rules this year for education have to do with educational institutions and proprietary schools, governing administration, and governing thoroughness. And we had a presentation yesterday in our committee in regards to changes in graduation requirements. Now, I have some teachers from my area that are not excited about some of the changes that they're making in graduation requirements. And the reason being is that they want to basically, my understanding is, drop communication and speech as a requirement and exchange that for digital literacy. And so there's a lot of concern coming from not just my district, but several other districts on that change. So we had quite a discussion yesterday. We haven't adopted that rule. I don't know if we will. Also with history, with the new history curriculum, there's concern on that. Senator Carlson actually did a review. I think she was on the board and wrote a letter because she has a lot of concerns on the history curriculum changes. So that's education. And then I'm also on Senate Commerce and Human Resources. This is my thickest one.
Oh,
So
goodness.
these are all the rules. And you might be able to see there's different colors like reds and blues and blacks, right? Well, the red is the changes that they're making, and the blue is what it's currently. And there's usually like strike throughs to show that that one's going away, if you can see it like that. But anyway, and this is my first year on Commerce and Human Resources. I was on business over on the House side, so there's some similarities. But we have things in here regarding the Industrial Commission, morticians, adoption of international fire codes, boards of registration for professional geologists, contractor boards, petroleum gas safety, certifications for shorthand reporter boards, accountancy rules, board of licensure for professional engineers and professional land surveyors, rules for the real estate commission. And so it kind of just goes on. But those are some of the topics that we're going over during our rules process. And then what we do is we vote on the rules are presented in what they call dockets. And then we vote on those dockets. and we have discussions on those dockets. And we can vote to not adopt any of it, or we can vote to not adopt certain parts of it, but we can't make subtle changes to it necessarily. There's a few things we can do, but it's kind of a weird process. So anyway, but those are our rules that we're going through right now. And like I said, in between, we have legislators that are presenting their RSs or their bills, or like mine, my anti-swatting bill. It's already been through the process on the Senate side. It got out of the House floor, and now it's going over to, or off the Senate floor, sorry, and now it's going over to the House to go through the process over there.
That's quite a bit. So it's almost like you have to be an expert on everything in order to be the people having oversight over all these things.
Right. There's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot that people don't, the general public has no idea that we do. They think we come here and, write bills and pass bills, and we do. That is part of it. But like I said, we also have the rules and, and work on that. But I'm glad to see that they have been going through the rules over the last few years and just really dwindling those down, because it's a lot. There's a lot. And a lot of people don't understand that we don't just have laws, but we have these rules, like I said, that function like laws, and that we have to also deal with as well.
There's a clip of Ronald Reagan before he ran for president on the Johnny Carson show from, I think it's 1974 or 75, talking about the same thing, how you have bureaucrats crafting rules and they have the force of law. And, if you break those rules, then you could be charged with a crime or fined.
Right.
It's something that we've been fighting for a long time.
Yeah. Now, I will say one thing I was really happy to see is in our Commerce and Human Resources, there was actually a presentation where the fees actually went down significantly that they were charging for certifications and different things like that.
Good.
So we made sure to commend them on being able to do that, because you don't see fee reductions very often in government. So when you do, I think it's kind of important to let them know that you're very happy that they're actually reducing costs for people. So that's a good thing.
Now, you mentioned the history curricula and taking away some of the communications and replacing it with digital literacy. That reminded me that you had a bill regarding cursive. Now,
Yes.
I learned cursive in school. I
Okay.
rarely use it. I
Me
can
too.
sign my name, but I can usually read it. But I found that when reading old documents, say the original draft of the Constitution, or reading old letters that my great great grandparents wrote, they're all in cursive. And if I hadn't learned, then I would not be able to read them at all. So
Sure.
I think there is some importance there. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the story behind that really is, I've just been noticing over the years, and even with a couple of my own children, that it started with just looking at pictures, and that a lot of our youth don't have a signature anymore. I get in my line of work, my regular job, people sign checks to me. And I've noticed that sometimes they just print on their checks, or, but it's not really a signature. And I kept thinking about that. And then I heard from some people that I know that are in the banking industry that they were having young adults come in with their parents to open up accounts and have their parents sign their checking cards for them, because they didn't have a signature.
Hmm.
And the more I kept thinking about it, it brought me back to a video that was actually made by Coors Beer several years ago, that had to do with what they call master penmen. And there's 12 of them in the world. The youngest one, by about 3 decades, is from Colorado. And they just made this video about the importance of penmanship and what that does, and why it's something that we don't want to lose, even in a technology world that we live in. And then, so I had a meeting last year in December with Superintendent Critchfield, and talked to her about my concerns with that, and what could we do. And I kept brainstorming on it. And then about a week after we got into session, the National Archives actually came out with basically a wanted ad, help wanted nationally, looking for people that can read cursive because they are having a really hard time finding people that can come in and read cursive. And they have tons of documents that are still needing to be translated and just various things. And they use AI in some of this, but they always need real eyes on it at the end because AI can't pick up all the cursive. So they're on this search for volunteers to do that, and they'll even help train them if they don't know how to read cursive. But I thought, well, what's going on in our schools then here? Because just like you were saying, I was the same way. I learned cursive. I had penmanship awards and different things, and so I started diving into our standards and found that in 2000, I think it was 16, there was a law passed because Common Core had come in. It actually removed cursive from our standards, and so there was a legislator here that passed a bill saying that cursive had to be taught in our schools. The only problem is in our standard, and you can look it right up. Cursive starts in third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. It says that on the top that these are things that are going to be taught, but they may or may not be tested for proficiency.
Hmm.
So while we're teaching them, or we're supposed to be teaching them, we're not making sure that kids are actually learning it. And I had another meeting with the superintendent, and she even told me that she'd gone to some schools, and even in the elementary school where they're supposed to be teaching it, they might have one teacher that teaches it, but the other one doesn't. And so there's inconsistency that's taking place with that. There's a lot of studies, scientific studies about the brain development with cursive and what that does for the brain and how it helps kids that have learning disabilities. That once you learn cursive, it's actually faster than printing. It talks about the neurons that are formed in the brain and how it helps with memorization and kids with attention issues and just different things like that. So there's a lot to it. Not only just being able to read our historic documents, but like you're saying, a lot of our family documents are in cursive. And so we don't want to lose that. And like I said, even in a technology world that we're living in, we still need to have that. We're always going to have paper and that sort of thing. The other interesting thing, I was talking to one of our elections clerks, and he was saying that, when people mail in their ballots, they check the signatures. And if they don't match what they have on file, then they can kick out those ballots. They try to get a hold of the person and double check, but they're using that to compare signatures. We use it on important documents, driver's licenses and mortgage papers and passports and certificates. So there's just a lot that we still need that for. So I thought, well, let's put in some proficiency standards so that we can make sure not only are we teaching cursive, but that our kids are actually learning to read and write it as well. So that's what my bill does, is it adds those proficiency standards. It was introduced in the Senate Education Committee this week. And actually, one of the Democrats was the one that made the motion to print it because she's a former teacher and she really feels that it's important for kids to still have that ability. So now we'll have the full hearing on it, and I'm excited to do that, to bring in this information to just show how important it actually is.
I feel like this is one of those issues that's not going to be an ideological divide. It's going to be a generational divide. The older
Mhm.
generations, I think, understand that this is something important, or they believe it's something important. Younger generations might have to be convinced, and I think there's
Right.
enough information out there to convince them.
I think so. I think so. And you look and see just the artistic portion of it too. And like I said, in this video that Coors Beer did, that is what those master penmen do, is they actually take the calligraphy and the cursive and form it into a lot of artwork.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's really, really interesting. But there's a lot to it, and yeah, it should be a good discussion.
Yeah. Well, just wanted to say, one more thing before I let you go. I appreciate your time here. I don't think I've ever actually been in the agricultural committee, but I intend to be there on Tuesday morning.
Yes, Tuesday is going to be great. We are having the hearing on the Free the Chickens bill. And that, I have to tell you, we've had a lot of people that have moved into our state, but it's not just them. I've just had a lot of people that have given me their stories about not being able to have chickens or wanting to have chickens, surprised that they couldn't have chickens. And so I decided, let's free the chickens. Let's let people on their property in their houses be able to have at least some chickens. So that's what this bill does. And I think it's just at the right time too. I mean, we're hearing all about egg prices. We're hearing how expensive eggs are getting. We're hearing about a lot of chickens being slaughtered, and that it's going to take 9 to 12 months to regain what we've lost in that, and the egg prices will continue to go up for a while. I've had people sending me in pictures of stores where the section of eggs is empty. There's just no eggs left. So I think it's a good time to bring this bill forward and to get it passed so that people can have chickens. And there's a lot more to it than that, but I think it's a good time and it should be a good bill. So Tuesday, 8 o'clock, that's when that bill will be heard, and people can testify on it too. So.
Well, I plan to be there, and I hope all our viewers will write in and testify, or sign up to come in and explain why we should have chickens, because I totally
Absolutely.
agree. Well, Senator Nichols, thank you for your time. I want to let you get back to
You.
your weekend. Is there anything else you wanted to mention, or where can people follow you to learn more?
Yeah, so you can follow me at Nichols for Idaho. I have a website. I'm on X and Instagram and Facebook. And then if you go to my website, you can also sign up for my Substack. I put out a weekly newsletter basically during the session so that people know what's going on, and send out special messages and stuff too, so that people can participate in the governmental process as well. But yeah, Nichols for Idaho, and you can find me there.
Well, Senator, thank you for your time, and have a good weekend. And look
Thank
forward
you.
to the Free the Chickens next week.
Free the chickens. Exactly.
All right,
All
have a
right.
good night.
Take care. Thanks, Brian.
Appreciate Senator Nichols for taking the time. I try to reach out to various legislators who either have a new bill in, or something came up. Not everyone can make it. A lot of people on a Friday night want to go spend time with their families. I totally get that. But if you are a lawmaker and you're watching this, or you're connected in some way to the political world, and you want to come on and give your take, just let me know, and I'll send you a link, and we'll do this. I try to do this every Friday evening at 7:30 Mountain Time. It's after my children have gone to bed. I figure it's instead of sitting down and watching the evening news, maybe you can watch the Gem State Report. I did miss the last couple of weeks. 2 weeks ago, I was getting ready for a trip out to Idaho Falls. Had a fun event there with the East Idaho Patriots. Got to speak to them, give them an update on the legislature, meet a lot of great people. And then last week, I was just still recovering from being sick, this nasty cold or flu that went through the whole family. So, that's some of the stuff that's happening. Senator Nichols mentioned the anti-swatting bill that passed the Senate floor unanimously. There was one abstention, and it will go over to the House side and hopefully pass as well. Swatting, of course, is when you make a false report of that causes a police presence at someone's house. Say somebody's watching this stream and they just really don't like something I say, and they happen to know my home address, and so they call the police and say, "Hey, he's got some hostages. He's going to hurt people." And then, of course, the police come, guns blazing, ready to save the day. And obviously have no idea what's going on. I hear people at my door, and bad things will happen. People have actually been killed due to that. And so, right now, our laws only say that it's I think a misdemeanor filing a false report, and this law would strengthen that and hopefully act as a deterrent, so people think twice before doing something so heinous. So I wanted to take a few minutes and cover some of the stuff that's going on. I'm going to share my screen over here. Give me just a second to do that. I've got way too many screens open is the problem. There we go. So I wanted to highlight this article. This just came up earlier today from the Idaho Freedom Foundation. Their newest policy person, Rachel Hayslip, former legislative candidate and activist, and presence here in the Treasure Valley. She wrote this article about the governor's office and the governor's budgets, essentially putting tax dollars into a group that is essentially lobbying against school choice in Idaho. So you can go see this. This is one of their top articles right now, idahofreedom.org. Obviously, the governor is supporting school choice to an extent. He's, in his State of the State address, he said he was going to put $50 million towards school choice, which is the amount that matches Representative Horman's new bill that came out this week. And I'll be writing about that, by the way. There's a lot of, I think, confusion about what the bill does. I sat down with some subject matter experts today and looked over the bill line by line. So probably Monday or Tuesday, I'm going to have an in-depth article about what the Representative Foreman's school choice bill actually does, and you know, hopefully it's a start. I guess that's what I'll say. It's a start for school choice here. But in any case, so there's something called the STEM Action Center. 2015, legislature created an organization under the office of the governor called the STEM Action Center. Mission was to provide equitable access to STEM education for all Idaho students, educators, and communities. Aims to produce a competitive STEM-ready workforce through educational and policy initiative. STEM, by the way, science, technology, engineering, and math. Basically, the hard sciences, the things that you learn if you want to build things rather than just being a creative person, like me. I work with words. People in STEM work with metal. They work with chemicals. They build machines. The things we need for civilization to survive. So STEM is important. And you see, over the last 20 years or so, 15, 20 years, you've seen a lot of emphasis with governments pushing STEM. It became a buzzword. And then some creative people, the people into art and music and literature and writing, decided they were being left out. So they made up something called STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, but that defeats the whole purpose, because the whole purpose of STEM is to say, we're going to focus on the hard sciences, the things that help people build things, the machinery that runs civilization. So in any case, the STEM Action Center's top vendor, to whom they devote the largest percentage of money, is IBE. That's Idaho Business for Education. Specifically, the STEM Action Center spent 45.2% of its total vendor expenditures on IBE in fiscal year 2024. So almost half the money that the STEM Action Center is spending goes to this one group, Idaho Business for Education. Now, what is Idaho Business for Education? It's a coalition, and this is Hayslip again, a coalition of business leaders across Idaho who invest in public education and one of the largest lobbies against school choice in the state. IBE aims to transform education in Idaho to create a future workforce through two house strategy, the State House and the Schoolhouse. Actually, if we look up Idaho Business for Education, Business for Education, and you can actually see what it is. Good schools, great businesses. It's basically, youth apprenticeship program connecting schools with, with businesses, creating a funnel, a pipeline. Our work, our mission. You can go see all that. See who's on the board there. Board of Directors, Andy Scoggin, Kurt Liebeck. Kurt Liebeck is also the head of the State Board of Education, so there's a connection there. Brad Ryan. Chickbrow Ryan Murata, by the way, the law firm there that he's part of. He's the Ryan of those three words. They're connected to various vendors and also groups that give money to the governor's PACs. I'll have more on this in the future. I'm gonna take what Rachel Hayslip is laying down and pick it up and run with it. So you'll see something about that next week. In any case, going back to the article. So that's Idaho Business for Education, and they are one of the largest lobby groups against school choice in Idaho. On January 6th, the first day of the legislative session, Senator Cody Galloway, get my senators in the Treasure Valley mixed up. Senator Galloway hosted a school choice forum where she invited Chris Cargill of Mountain States Policy Center to argue in favor of school choice, and she invited a representative from Idaho Business for Education to argue against it. And so that's one of the things they're doing. They are lobbying against school choice. The school choice bill that Representative Foreman has in here, I bet you dollars to donuts that an Idaho Business for Education lobbyist will be in the hearing next week to testify against it, but we'll see. In any case, so what exactly is taking place? STEM Action Center's transaction history revealed a large number of expenditures labeled miscellaneous expenses paid for with both STEM education and general funds. Between fiscal years 2024 and 2025 thus far, the STEM Action Center has made 3 large payments to IBE totaling $1.556 million from the state general funds. That is Idaho taxpayer dollars. They received over $1 million in fiscal year 2024 alone. The reason for these transactions appears to be related to a program now hosted by IBE in partnership with the STEM Action Center called the Idaho STEM Ecosystem. In any case, does this seem like an elaborate shell game? It does to us too. And it does to me too, for what that's worth. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to dig a little bit further into this and see who the people are and see what's going on. Do a little bit of digging on the Idaho Business for Education and what they do. I mean, maybe I'll stand open to the possibility that maybe there's a legitimate reason for this, but it is still odd, isn't it, that the governor's STEM council here is sending over $1 million of tax dollars to a group that is one of the primary lobby groups against school choice. What's going on? It's a question that needs answers. At the bottom of the article, Hazlip says they've contacted the governor's office and the STEM Action Center regarding the matter, but have not received a comment from either. So there you go. Hopefully IFF follows up on this. Hopefully, I obviously will follow up on it. Hopefully we'll get some answers about what's going on here. So that's that. I can do that. That's fun. Let's pop over here. Gem State Chronicle. That's obviously the website, the home of this platform. If you haven't been there in a while, go check it out. Make sure to check out our sponsors. We have 2 sponsors right now. Boise Realty Group is Lynn Bradeskew's realty office. She is a prominent figure here in the Treasure Valley in Boise. She donates a lot of money to a lot of great causes, great Republican and conservative causes. She's a chair of the Idaho District 19 Central Committee. Does a lot of work for the Republican cause, and she is also kind enough to sponsor the Gem State Chronicle, and I appreciate that. So go, if you're buying or selling a house, go check out Boise Realty Group. Also, Idaho Family Policy Center is sponsoring the platform now as well. And they have a petition to bring the Bible back to public school. And if you're a conservative Christian, that seems like a great idea. If you're not, you might wonder why. And well, I am working on an article where I'm going to explain why I think that's a good idea. They're not looking to bring it in a sectarian fashion where you hear sermons in school. It's really just teachers would read a couple of verses every day. And the point is to expose children to this thing that, as Christians, we believe is the Word of God. But even if you're not a believer, you got to understand that the Bible is essentially the basis for civilization. It's really fascinating to go back to literature and even movies from just a couple decades ago. Passages from the Bible, stories from the Bible, allusions to biblical ideas were just commonplace because everybody knew them. It's like how everybody can make a reference to some TV show that's recently been on the air. You just make the reference, you reference a meme or something, and everybody understands it. It used to be the case with ideas from the Bible, and now that's really fading away because people just don't recognize it. And even if you're not a believer, I think it's helpful to understand the ideas that helped build Western civilization. So I will be writing about that soon. But in the meantime, just go to gemstatechronicle.com, click on the ad, go sign the petition for Idaho Family Policy Center to bring the Bible back to public schools. Got the session snapshot over here. I am way behind. I've been way too busy to sit down and write up little articles about all these interesting bills. So I will see what I can do about that tomorrow. So yeah, that's kind of fallen by the wayside. I'll do my best. In the center, we've got news and views. So if I ever have just a straight news story, I post it there. But oftentimes I just use it for press releases and guest editorials like this one from Senator Jim Risch. He's one of our 2 U.S. senators, and he's talking about how he persuaded President Donald Trump on his first day in office to sign an executive order killing the Lava Ridge Wind Project. That's been an object of concern for the people of Idaho for 2 years now. The Bureau of Land Management, BLM, the federal government, wanted to come in here and build these massive wind turbines, bigger than normal ones. They're huge, they're massive, all over this Lava Ridge area. And part of that's kind of just pristine wilderness. Part of it's connected to the historical area at Minidoka where the Japanese citizens were interred during World War II. Part of that touches on some Native American areas, but everybody in Idaho was against this. Republicans, Democrats, everyone. They were telling the federal government, don't do this. And the federal government, on like the last day of Biden's term, came in and said, we're going to do it anyway. Thankfully, the president has eliminated that. And so I'm thankful for all our elected officials who worked to get that done. Brandon Durst, former state senator, former candidate for state superintendent, he had an article about math standards here in Idaho and how he believes the education bureaucracy is more interested in protecting itself than actually teaching children. So go check that out. And of course, Dorothy Moon, Idaho GOP chair, this week has one on pretty much denouncing confrontational politics. You've got these outside groups, these out-of-state groups who are just tearing into our Republican legislators, just firing broadsides against everybody who is not 100% on their side. I mean, really, the thing that set Chair Moon off, and the thing that really set a lot of us off, was watching them create these little ads showing Republican legislators and writing "traitor" over their pictures. Guys like Representative Josh Tanner, who's super conservative, one of my legislators in District 14, or Representative Chris Bruce, a freshman legislator from District 23, one of the nicest men you'll ever meet. Just super nice, unassuming, just wants to do good for the people of his district. And he's got an ad calling him a traitor because he didn't vote exactly the way this group wanted to. It was ridiculous. So go read Dorothy Moon's column there. Over on the Substack side, this is my daily posts. I try to do one a day. I don't always get that, especially during session, a lot's going on. Today I really this morning I was watching some committee hearings. So there were really three here that jumped out at me. Senator Kelly Anthon, the Senate President pro tempore, he had a bill to prohibit discrimination by banks and financial services based on political or religious views. Now, there was a bill to do this last year. I think Representative Tanner was actually part of it, and it didn't make it through the process. The idea is you have these big banks, U.S. Bank, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whomever, and you'll see these stories about people being debanked. So somebody connected to some conservative group will find that their account has been shut down. In fact, during the hearing today, the chairman of the Idaho Constitution Party, the Constitution Party is made up of the people who are so conservative that the Republicans aren't good enough for them. The tactics and strategy involved there, we can debate another time. But the point being that, this guy's a super conservative guy. And he talked about being debanked. He just got a letter in the mail one day with a check for the balance of his account saying, your account is now closed. And they wouldn't tell him why. Now, during this hearing, a representative of the Idaho Bankers Association came on and said, well, this isn't happening. People aren't being debanked for their viewpoints. And the people who are having their accounts closed, well, there's federal regulations saying why the banks can't tell them why they're doing it. So, it was a little bit of the it's not happening, but it's a good thing. But what really jumped out at me here is that you've got Senator Kelly Anthon, who a lot of folks say he's too moderate. You look at his IFF scores, his Freedom Index, or his platform scores, or all these other scorecards that conservative organizations present. And, he's not on the most conservative side of that. And so people call him a rhino or a moderate or whatever. And yet he's here presenting a bill to protect people from being debanked. Protect people like Laura Loomer or Andrew Torba, who obviously neither of them live in Idaho, but they both faced being being debanked due to their political views. And he's saying he doesn't want to see this happen in Idaho. And on that committee was a Democrat, Senator James Ruckty. And Senator Ruckty was really concerned with this bill because he said, well, what if banks want to disassociate from someone who is engaged in hate or extremism? And Senator Ben Taves, who's also on the committee, had the perfect answer to that. He said, every one of us on this committee has been accused of being a hate monger or an extremist. And that's really where the issue is. Under Senator Ruckty's worldview, if somebody decides that you are peddling hate or you're an extremist, then you should be essentially cut off from the public square. Have your social media accounts censored, have your bank accounts closed. You're not able to do business. You're not able to speak your mind. You're not able to do anything. You are shut down. You are essentially unpersoned. And all it takes is for someone, and that's a good question. Who decides? Someone to decide that you are not worthy of having these things and you are essentially ostracized from our society. And that really jumped out at me because this is the difference between Republicans and Democrats. Even somebody that you might consider to be a moderate Republican is out there saying banks shouldn't discriminate against people for their political views. And then you have a Democrat who's saying, well, why not? I used a couple other examples here. Representative Judy Boyle introduced a bill to not allow teachers unions to use taxpayer funds. This bill, actually a bill that came through last year and did not get through the process. I actually have this one loaded up. So why don't we take a break from listening to me and watch Representative Boyle present this bill.
The RS I bring you today is RS 32070. And this bill is to ensure that taxpayer dollars are not used to support teacher unions. So I will just briefly go through some of the parts here. There are exceptions to this on page 2, line 1 through 34. If there's a negotiated agreement for time off without paying for, so the district doesn't pay for their pay or their benefits, if they use personal leave, or if the union wants to reimburse the district. Pages 3 and 4 are different definitions in the part of the code that's ethics in government. Pages 5 and 6 are the penalties, and they increase with each violation. So it starts with $250, and on the third one, it's up to $2,500. Page 6 forbids the district from contracting and thus breaking the law. That's repeated on page 10 and page 12. And then LSO has some corrections that you see in there on pages 7, 8, 9, and 10. And then page 11 are different definitions in the educational code. So I would stand for questions.
Thank you, Representative Boyle. Are there questions for Representative Boyle? Seeing none. Oh, Representative Achilles.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Boyle, did any teachers or school boards work with you on this legislation?
Representative Boyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, no, this is basically a cleaned up bill from last year.
Follow up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Representative Boyle, just doing some research on this area last night, I think there's some significant national research that shows that students perform better in schools where there's a tight relationship between the teachers union and the district and the school board. I am concerned that this would make it harder for those two groups to collaborate, with the effect that student outcomes would fall. So I think when this comes back to committee, I'd love to just get into some of that research with you and discuss that.
Okay. Any further questions? Representative Scott.
I move to introduce RS 32070.
Can we have a motion to introduce RS 32070? Is there discussion on that motion or further questions for Representative Boyle? Representative Dygert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Boyle, I'm looking at page 5 on line 1, and it talks about influencing the passage or defeat of any type of legislation.
Was I muted all this time? How long have I been muted? I hope it's not been long, because I don't want to repeat all that. Yeah, so this is Citizens Alliance of Idaho, Idaho Signal. I've been proud to be a contributing editor this year. You see me 10 to 15 minutes every day, bringing you information on what's going on. I also write an article for them every week that you can see exclusively on X or Twitter. So check that out. But over here on the videos tab, you can see segments. You can see my segment today talking about welfare and photo ID, and a bill to make it so you can't have candy or soda on Snap. Senator Brandon Shippey talking about stuff. Senator Anthony, Lily Almon, no relation. She's making videos, a couple videos a week for Idaho Signal, which is great. Over here, Matt Edwards came down to Boise personally yesterday to deliver a stack of 1,300 petitions. 1,300 signed petitions saying stop the mask mandates. Representative Rob Beiswinger presented a bill, got it through the House, and now it's waiting a hearing in the Senate. So Matt Edwards brought it to caucus chair Senator Ben Taves and pro tem Senator Kelly Anthony. I'm told it will get a hearing in Senate State Affairs, and hopefully it passes there. It's time to end these mask mandates. The cities and counties don't want it to end because they want the authority to throw masks on your face if they feel like it's necessary, and then throw you in jail if you refuse. And obviously, we the people do not want that. One last thing I wanted to cover over here is Mountain States Policy Center has their WONK. It's an AI LLM, large learning model. You can go over to click on Idaho here, and you can look at any of these bills and see what they're about. So let's see. House Bill 86 adds to existing law to require electric vehicle charging stations or parking spaces in any building plan and to provide for preemption of local laws and ordinances. So WONK says this document's a bill introduced, Idaho House of Representatives, Business Committee, aims to amend the Idaho Building Code by adding a new section, prohibits certain electrical vehicles charging infrastructure requirements. So basically, you had some cities saying that if you want to build a building here, you have to have X number of electrical vehicle charging stations. And this bill would preempt those local laws and say, no, you don't have to do that. That's ridiculous. If you want to, you can. Nobody's stopping you, but there's no requirement. Anyway, the cool thing about this WONK program is you can ask questions. And what stage is this bill at? See if it knows. It's still learning. Yeah, okay, so it says it's been enacted. Obviously, it has not been enacted. If you go to legislation, Idaho legislation, Bill Center, what was this? House Bill 86. Go down there, House Bill 86. It's been printed. So it had a print hearing. It's been printed, read the first time on the House floor, and it's sitting in the Business Committee right now and waiting a hearing. So, yeah, WONK is still learning, but it is an interesting resource. And once it's a little more mature, it's going to be a great resource because you'll be able to get some details about bills. Like I said earlier today, I was sitting down with a subject matter expert on school choice and going through the new school choice bill line by line. Imagine having an AI that could actually answer for you, and you could trust that it was correct. That's the thing about some of these. You still got to double check. By the way, if you want to know any legislation, just go to the legislation site. You can see it by bill number. You can do it by subject. Accounts, acts, administrative department, agriculture. That's Senator Nichols' neck of the woods over there. So yeah, that's where you can find information, and I'll try and get Session Snapshot updated. It is a lot of just tedious work, which I haven't had time to do, but I'll try. In the meantime, remember to head over to Gem State Chronicle. If you're not subscribed, click on the subscribe button, and that brings you to the Substack where you can subscribe and get one article a day in your inbox. Usually on Saturdays, I do a roundup where I just list all the articles I wrote this week, plus interesting stuff. Usually it's a couple videos that I watched that week that I find interesting, plus articles I've read that I want to share with you. So yeah, hopefully that wasn't muted for too long. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. Still trying to figure some of this out. So let me close this out. I don't see any chats, so nothing to answer right now, but I hope this has been interesting for you. I will be back next Friday for another edition of the Gem State Report. I'll try and bring you some legislators who can share their perspective and tell you what's going on in their worlds. But in the meantime, I wish you a good weekend, and I'll see you next time.